Hi, my name is Jeremy Meldrum, and I'm one of Venafi's Senior Solution Architects. And today in our presentation, we're going to go through how easy it is using the Venafi Trust Protection Platform to manage thousands of certificates, and how easy it is to manage a variety of both public and private CA vendors. In addition to that, being able to sunset one PKI for another PKI, and whether that is from public to private or private to public or just from one CA to another becomes extremely important. Venafi generally calls that CA agility. Now, with the Trust Protection Platform, Venafi is able to integrate directly with Active Directory, which has several benefits. Here you can see that I'm going to go ahead and log in as my Active Directory administrator. But some of those benefits of integrating directly with Active Directory allows you to anchor permissions, anchor rights, do escalations, through the Active Directory process that already exists within most organizations across the world. And as I log in here, you notice that I logged in as my administrator, which he has full rights to the console. At the top, you can see that he's got a bunch of different tabs. But more importantly, the first thing that comes up is this nice dashboard. And previously, we've talked a little bit about the various different discovery methods in which Venafi is able to populate your certificates, not only the actual certificate, but also where those certificates live within your organization. And this dashboard gives you a really good idea of what's out there on your network, accurate inventory. You can see the total managed number of certificates that you have. You can see how many certificates are expiring within the next 30 days. You can also see your key size and your signing algorithm and some of the other risks that actually exist within your organization. So for example, this one here with key size, you can see that there are 12 certificates that have been found in your organization that are less than 2048-bit. And if you highlight over here, it'll tell you where you're out of compliance. So here, by having these 12 certificates within your organization, you're out of compliance with SANS, NIST, and PCI DSS. And this goes on and on down this row. So you can see weak signing algorithms and validity periods and things of that nature, unapproved issuers, and even distrusted semantic certificates, which have been found within the organization that probably should be replaced due to the lack of trust currently within the industry. These additional, pie charts or widgets further break down the numbers that you see up above, and the signing algorithms, the validity periods. You can also see when certificates are actually going to expire within your organization. So if in fact you did have a certificate or a couple of certificates that are going to expire, let's say during a blackout period or something like that within your organization, you would easily be able to click on those and then renew those outside of that blackout window. One of the other interesting widgets here, it's one of my favorites, is actually the Certificate Authority widget. So as I've found certificates throughout my enterprise, being able to identify where those certificates are being issued from becomes really critical. You can identify whether someone spun up their own CA, right? And so you can go and coach them into, hey, this is our certificate policy, and you need to be getting certificates from our trusted issuers. You can also see, for example, here, maybe there's a group or an individual within your organization that is going out to one of your non-trusted issuers, like for example maybe this would be GoDaddy, and swiping a credit card. And so you can click on this and identify those certificates. You can drill down and identify those certificates within your organization that may not be fully trusted, and have them start to issue certificates from a trusted issuer. The Trends widget is actually really nice. Management within your organization really likes to see progress. So for example, let's say SHA-1 to SHA-2 migration. So if we were to come in here, this happened back in the day, signing algorithm, you can see that I had all these SHA-1 certificates. I had this big remediation effort that actually took place, and you can see that my SHA-2s increase. And management really likes to see progress when you're working on some of these initiatives. And so this is the dashboard. This is a live dashboard. It changes all the time as certificates get renewed and automated and discovered throughout that organization, and makes it very easy to see your health of your network. So, well, health of your certificate population. So let's just, there's a couple of scenarios that people generally ask me about. One of those is, hey, I get these certificates that are going to expire, and how easy is it to use your platform to be able to renew those certificates? And so that is one of the things that I'd like to show you here is, for example, if I were to go ahead and log in and I see that there's 9 certificates expiring within 30 days, I may want to renew some of those. And so I can actually click on this number 9, and this immediately takes me specifically to those 9 that are going to expire. On the left-hand side, if there were more than 9, I could actually do some more filtering if I wanted to look for a specific certificate. But in this instance, you can see the common name of all the certificates that are going to expire. You can also, right here, from an installation standpoint, this tells you where these certificates are actually installed. So if I were to expand this, you would see it's actually installed on this IP address. Or down here, you can see this one here is actually installed in 2 different locations within my organization, right? And this one's installed on one. It looks like that's an Akamai technology. And so you can see that when I replace this certificate, I need to make sure to replace it on however many endpoints Venafi is aware of out there. So if I wanted to renew one of these certificates, let's just take this 80white.com. Okay, these are actually real certificates that are out on the internet, but you can see that this definitely needs to be renewed. Okay, and so you can see it's part of the Starfield Technologies, and so I could come in here and I could go ahead and I could click renew and click renew here, and this would actually go through, and this is actually going to renew it through my private CA. Due to I don't have access to 80white.com's CA, so I'm just renewing it through my CA. But the power of this is you can see that I can sunset one old PKI for another PKI, and later we're going to get into a little bit more of those details. So if I just hit refresh, we're probably done. Yep, we're actually done. So here you can see this server certificate. It's a web server 2-year. It was issued by my J. Meldrum CA, and you can see that now we actually have 2 years left. And so that's how easy you can go through and renew those certificates. And I could go through as many of these as I actually needed to. I don't even have to drill down on any of these if I didn't want to. I could just come in here and click renew, and the renewal process would actually take place. You can see that the renewal is actually taking place here. And after I click on it, obviously you can see that this has now actually been renewed. And if I wanted to download it, I could just click on action at the top, click download, choose whatever format that I actually wanted to download this certificate in, so that I could go out and manually apply that to my endpoints that this certificate is currently bound to. Now, a little bit later, we're actually going to talk about automation and how to automatically install that out to the endpoint. But in this instance, you could download it and you could manually install that. But you can see how quick you can actually renew a certificate. Now, in addition to this, if I wanted to renew this certificate and add an additional SAN, I could actually come in here to edit and renew, and I could go through the process, which we're going to go through these here in just a moment, but I could add in a new SAN if I wanted to, right? And then hit submit. And now this renewal takes place. This is actually creating a new private public key, a new CSR, submitting it to my Microsoft CA, and getting that new certificate back. So if we just hit refresh, I now have a new certificate. You can see down here under DNS, you can see that I received a SAN. So, so right from the dashboard, you can quickly identify now we only have 7 certificates left that actually need that renewal process. And those emails are easily sent out to the respective parties. So let's go ahead and log out as my administrator, and we're going to log in as, let's say, a limited rights user, someone that doesn't have full access to the platform. And this is my operational admin. So we go ahead and we log in. You'll notice for him, he has 145 total managed certificates. You've got 1 certificate that's going to expire in the next 30 days. And he doesn't have all the same tabs that the others had across the top. But if we go ahead, we come in here, we click on certificates, all right? And within these certificates, this looks a lot like what you just saw before, but you can see all 145 certificates that he has. You can notice some of these, like let's say cloudfront.com or .net. You can see that this is actually installed in 4 different locations. So if I end up automating this or downloading this and needing to apply it to specific endpoints, I need to make sure that I hit all 4 of these endpoints. And then Venafi will do a validation process to make sure that the site is up and working with the cert that is within Venafi. And if they don't match, obviously we're going to notify you. But we can make sure that installation actually takes place. I have most of my validation actually disabled due to most of these certificates are live certificates out on the internet. So one of the other scenarios is, let's say that I'm an IIS administrator and I just need to get a certificate. What would that actually look like? So I would go ahead and I'd click here under Create New Certificate in the top right-hand corner. I'd click this drop-down, and you notice that this guy's a member of the operations team. So there's been permissions, role-based permissions that have been given to this user so that he only sees the certificates that he has stewardship over, which is extremely important. Not everybody should see all certificates across the organization due to security concerns. And so here under the operations team, you can see I have a bunch of different folders. Now one of these is called Prod Internal Workflow. You can guess, right? This is a prod certificate. It's an internal certificate, and I have workflow set up. Now your folder structure probably wouldn't have that. You probably wouldn't name it like I named it, but for demonstration purposes, it makes a lot of sense. So we go ahead and we click workflow here. Let's go ahead and create a certificate. Let's do maybe mycompanytest.venafi.com. All right, that looks good. Okay, and then here there are a couple of additional fields. One is management type. Now, something that you do need to understand, which is very powerful within the Venafi platform, is you can actually create templates to enforce your security best practices and your policy that is written within your organization. And by doing that with Venafi, you can both lock and enforce those values. You can also default and suggest those values. And so you can create these templates, and when you lock those values in within Venafi, it actually hides them from view, which you'll see in just a moment. But currently under management type, I can choose, do I want to just do the enrollment of the certificate, or do I want to do the full automation of the certificate? And first we're just going to do the enrollment, all right? And then these fields down here are what Venafi calls custom fields. They're additional tracking metadata. So many of the organizations that I go into, due to their large size and their individual needs, need additional tracking metadata. So for example, I have customers that want to charge back to the various different teams or organizations or business units. And so you can see here I created this one called cost code. Now as administrator, I can create these and they can be enforced. You can make them required or optional. And here I can say, hey, you know what? This is a security operations certificate, or I could put in, partner email address or something like that, or a service ticket number for, ServiceNow or Remedy or something. And I go ahead and hit next. and let's go ahead and put in my common name. Now here, this is the certificate signing request, and I'm sure within your organization you've done many different CSRs, and CSRs are a challenge to get them properly formatted. Many individuals and application owners don't do it on a day-to-day basis, and they're just not familiar with the process. And so generally there's a lot of back and forth emails and stuff like that take place within an organization. And there's a lot of metadata that goes within that CSR. So, if you think about it, many times a CSR has like the common name, it has SANS, it has organization, OU, city, state, country, key size, public key, all these different things exist within this CSR, and to get that right is a real challenge. And so Venafi, using that template that we just talked about just a moment ago, we can actually enforce all of those values and not require that the user have to fill them out every single time, due to them generally being the same each time. And so I've set up a template here. I've locked those values in, and when you lock those values in, we hide them from view. And so that's why you only see a common name. My goal is to make the certificate request process so easy. Why would a user go, or an app owner go, anywhere else for a certificate, right? I want to be able to fill out a common name, fill out the SAN, and 15 seconds later or less be able to get a certificate. Now, we could have them paste in their own CSR if they wanted to, right? But we still enforce the same type of values, and it'll pop up if the CSR doesn't conform to your security best practices and say, hey, go get a CSR that has these additional items in it. And so you can definitely minimize the types of interactions and the amount of interaction that actually takes place back and forth through email or through verbal discussions. So let's go ahead, and I want Venafi to actually generate the private public key and the CSR for me, and we'll go ahead and hit next. Let's fill out a SAN, and obviously I can do an IP address SAN. There's other SANs I can do, but I'm currently, from my template, I'm actually hiding those from view. Now, from a certificate authority standpoint, I could also lock this down since it's an internal certificate. But for demonstration purposes, I left it unlocked so that you can see that there's a lot of different CAs that I can work with. These are CAs that I currently have integrations within my platform here. Now, we have dozens and dozens of certificate authorities that we actually work with, but these are integrations that I have personally set up within this platform. And so I could get a certificate right now from DigiCert or Entrust or Komodo or any of my Microsoft templates, and I'm just going to choose my 2-year for now. So I hit create, and right here immediately this says, hey, all right, I'm okay with creating the certificate, but we have a workflow process all set up. And your manager, I have it set up so that the operational admin's manager actually has to approve that certificate. So let's go ahead and log into the email and actually see what that looks like. So right here, let's go ahead and instead of logging in as the admin, let's log in as the manager. All right, and as we log in the manager, you notice that he received 2 emails, right? mycompanytest.venafi.com, and you may wonder, well, why did he receive 2 emails? Well, the reason for that is if you click on the first one, this is what a Venafi default email looks like. So I could click on Act on this request, and I could go ahead and approve that as the operational manager. However, I also have an additional email, and you notice here I put new template out to the side. And the reason for that is because these are custom templates. So Venafi allows you, it is flexible enough to build your own HTML templates, and you can see here that I am, in the United States, I'm a Green Bay fan. That's why I have Green Bay in the corner. And you can see here it says, hey, by the way, this actually requires your approval. And so you can go ahead and click on this, right? And this will immediately bring you to a login. And now the operational manager, okay, could go ahead, manager, got to spell it correctly. And I can go ahead and log in, and it automatically takes me to the approval process. And so, I can give a comment. I can say just because, whatever I want. But then I can look through here and I can say, all right, it looks like he's going to manually download it. I could also see what kind of hash algorithms are being used. I can see if Venafi is generating the CSR or if he uploaded a CSR. I can see what values are actually locked in and are enforced by our security best practices, right? That policy template I was talking about. I can see what SANs he's adding specifically to this, right? I can see who is actually requesting the certificate, the operational admin is, and what CA this is actually going to renew from. So I'm going to go ahead and hit approve. Now let's go ahead and flip back over here where it says pending someone else's approval. Let's just go ahead and refresh this. And you can see that we now have a certificate. This has been issued by J. Meldrum CA. I could come in here, I could download this certificate in whatever format, PEMDR, PKCS7, 12, Java Key Store. We also enforce, strong passwords. As you can see here, this password right here doesn't fit within that strong password. And so any of that capability exists. Now you can come in here under the show all properties. You can see the further details like the serial number and the thumbprint and all those other things, but most people don't really care about those, and so we hide those from view to simplify the UI. Okay, now to renew this certificate, like you saw before, is extremely easy. So assuming that these 2 years has passed and we needed to renew that certificate, we could come in here to actions and we could just click renew, right? We could edit it just like you saw before and add a SAN if we decided to, or we can just flat out just click renew. And if I click renew, you'll see here it says pending someone else's approval. Now I could, over here, I could actually go into the webmail and we could see that there is a new approval request. Okay, but I'm going to show you another way where we could actually come in here and if we went to the manager's dashboard, okay, you would see one that says pending my approval. So he could go ahead and click here. This would show this one is pending my approval. He could click and look at the details, or he could just click approve if he wanted to, just like you saw before, and click approve, right? And now that certificate has now been approved. If we come back here and we hit a refresh, you're going to see that this certificate, the approval process has gone through. We now have a new certificate, and Venafi tracks all of your history. So if we click on previous version, excuse me, you can see right here the serial numbers of the previous version. And if I wanted to revoke that previous version, due to I have now taken this version, installed that on my endpoint, and now I'm ready to do a revocation, I could come in here, click revoke. I could choose whatever choice I wanted, like a CA compromise, and click revoke. And you can see that this is now pending revocation. Now if I refresh it, we're probably done. It now says this has been successfully revoked, and this requested it from the CA. So if I were to go out to the CA, I would see that this was already revoked. Okay, now we just saw how easy it is to renew certificates, download certificates, revoke certificates. But let's say that we want to automate this entire process. What would that actually look like? So we could come back here to inventory. We could come into create. You can see that there's a bunch of different folders just like before. And I'm going to choose the one that says no workflow, right? You can probably guess why. Okay, and this one we are going to, let's just do like jmeldrum.vfidev.com. And the reason why we're going to use this domain is I'm going to show you how easy it is to switch from one certificate authority to another. All right, we're going to go ahead and copy that, and you can see we're going to choose, this time we're going to choose provisioning. Okay, and you'll see how different this looks. All right, we're going to go ahead, we're going to put in the common name. You notice that this CSR generation option changed, and so now it says, all right, do you want Venafi to generate the CSR and the private key centrally, or do you want to generate the CSR and the private key on the target system, right, on that endpoint that we're going to automate to? And either one of these options are supported. Now the second option is nice because the private key actually never lives centrally in a centralized database or anything like that. Now Venafi there can be a third option. This second option here can also that CSR can be generated also in an HSM. So Venafi can integrate directly with an HSM. But in this instance, we'll just generate it centrally. We're going to go ahead and hit next. And this time, I'm not even going to worry about a SAN. We're going to go ahead and get a web server 2-year certificate. Okay. And we'll go ahead and say create. And now here, you notice the option has changed, and it changes because I chose provisioning. So it says, well, you have this certificate that you're trying to create, but do you want to automate it? And so I say, yes, I absolutely want to automate that. Now I could create a brand new device, and let's say that I'm an IIS administrator and I'm automating this process. With that IIS server, if it doesn't exist, I can actually create a new device. If it already exists and I want to create, let's say, a new binding, Venafi can create that new binding. So I can go ahead in here and I can search for my IIS server. You can see that I have it here. All right. And then under installation type, I can choose the type of driver. Now this is an agentless automation or installation. So I'm going to go ahead and I could click this drop down and I could choose from here, or this is a search box. So I could type in, let's say I had an application called JBoss, and I was like, well, I wonder if Venafi can integrate with it, and how would they do that? I could just type JBoss, and it's like, oh, I can use this Java key store driver, and it uses SSH to automatically install that out to the endpoint. Now we could use a server agent, like it says here, to be able to do that automation, but most people use our agentless technology to do that. Now I could do it for like F5 or all sorts of different technologies. In this instance we're going to use IIS, and it says Windows CAPI and IIS. Okay, and then here under SSL TLS, I want to choose a port that I don't already have because I want to show that we can actually do a binding. So let's see. I know that I have 9.443, but let's just check if we have 10. Actually, let's see, we did what? jmeldrum.vfidev.com, I believe, colon 10.443. Let's just make sure. Yep. All right. So it says unable to connect. So if we flip back over here and just say add installation, and yes, we want to configure that right now, you can see under here, it'll tell me who my contacts and approvers are. It'll tell me the actual device. So you can see that I'm going to provision out to this jmeldrum.venafi.com. This is my service account that I use for the provisioning for IIS. I already had that defaulted in, but you could lock these in too, and create a template for policy enforcement, like I mentioned before. Private key location. Right here, you can see here that I could actually integrate with a Gemalto or Talus, HSM, or just my regular devices, which is what I'm doing right now. Let's go ahead and fill out the friendly name for my, CAPI settings. I could actually enforce this to be exportable. Now, this is really cool because think about this. If you wanted to secure the entire certificate lifecycle process from end to end, right, so that no one touches the private key for the entire certificate lifecycle, you would be able to do that. Within the Venafi permissions, you can set it so that the users can't download the private key. You could also set this from an exportable standpoint to know, so that when it gets provisioned out to IIS, no one ever touches that private key for the entire lifecycle, right? That could be extremely important, especially in high security areas. All right. Under IIS settings, we can actually, you would just fill out like the website name, the binding address, the binding port, which was what, 10.443, the binding host name, if I was using, let's say, SNI, and create binding. Basically, creating the binding says, create the binding if it doesn't exist, update it if it does exist. All right. So I could just save the installation settings, because maybe if I didn't have a couple of these settings, I could just save it and then I could come back and finish it. But right now, since I have everything filled out, I just want to save and install. And you notice really all I filled out was the friendly name, filled out my binding port, and that was it, right? So now I just hit save and install. So now what happens is I have this certificate that I've created called jmeldrum.vfidev.com, and then I've got this installation setting. Now I could have lots of installation settings, right? I could click here, and after this has been installed and renewed, oh, it's already done. Okay, I could, in fact, you can see under installations, this install, I could have several different installations here. Okay, let's go ahead and refresh this. And oh, you can see that my website came directly up, right? jmeldrum.vfidev.com. If we go ahead and look at the certificate, it looks like it popped over here. And you can see, yep, it's the vfidev.com, and you can see it's a 2-year certificate. Here's the serial number, 0479. And so if you wanted to further check the serial number, you would easily be able to just pop back in here, go to your overview, and if you go to show all properties, right? You see it there, 0479. And so you can see that they match. And so, going forward in the future, you notice that I didn't have workflow set up. You could set up workflow here. In the other example, we had workflow. This one didn't have workflow. So if I wanted to completely automate this again, all I would have to do, by default, Venafi at 30 days will automatically renew the certificate and install it. But in this instance, we're going to go ahead and just click renew here. All right, and now you can see that it says it's renewing. So it's getting a new private public key, CSR, submitting it to your certificate authority, and getting that certificate back, and then auto installing it out to our endpoint. So if I just hit refresh, we're probably done. We are. We have actually finished. You can click here. You can see that the installation is successful because the validation process actually took place. But you'll notice here that the overall validation had a failure right here, which is kind of interesting. Now, I did that on purpose. So if you come in here and you look at the SSL TLS, right, you can see that it actually renewed, and it said it found an unexpected certificate. And it's because that from the common name, it checked the 443 port and instead of the 10443 port. So we could actually come in and we could change the certificate settings right here to 10443. All right. And then from the overview, if we wanted to revalidate just to make sure that the validation process is actually working, I just clicked under Actions, and now we just check and just make sure everything's successful right there. So now from the SSL TLS, you can see that we actually checked it from an endpoint perspective, which is this. This is a further filter. This is all validation. And from a common name, right? And we also check the protocols, we check the chain, and we make sure that everything is happy and up and running properly. And so you can see from today's discussion here that Venafi has over 300 different integrations. That's both with HSMs, certificate authorities, and drivers like Apache, IIS, F5, Java key stores, Steelhead riverbeds, IBM data powers, you name it. I could continue to name these drivers. We have a large population of drivers that allows you to do agentless automation. And the benefits, once again, here is now you can manage thousands of certificates securely. You can keep an accurate inventory, and you can sunset one PKI for another very easily. As you saw me, I switched from one CA to another extremely easy. And so there's a lot of benefits to this. Even with this one here, I could actually click Renew. We could automate and say, you know what, I want to turn this into a public site. So I could click Next. I could click Next. I could choose another CA. Let's choose, you know what? Actually, let's choose my DigiCert multi-domain. Okay, and DNS. Let's go ahead and, you know what? Actually, we don't need another. We don't need here. Let's just put jmeldrum2.vfidev.com, and we go ahead and hit submit. All right, and now you can see all I did is I really just changed the CA and added a new SAN that I decided I wanted to do. You can see right now it's my jmeldrum, which is my Microsoft CA. But if we go ahead and click refresh, right, now you can see that this certificate here is now from my DigiCert certificate authority. It's that jmeldrum VFI dev. You can see it, the validation just barely went through, 3:17 p.m. You can see my bottom right hand corner, that matches. And so it validated to make sure that the cert in Venafi matches the cert out on the endpoint. And that includes, if you look on the SSL TLS, it includes the chain, right? which means that it also installed my intermediate roots for my DigiCert. So if we were to come out here, right, now if we were to look again, you can see that this one here is issued by, where is my issuer? I'll view certificate. You know, this is issued by my J. Meldrum CA, but if we go ahead and refresh this site, okay, and then we go ahead and look at the site again, you'll notice that this is now from my DigiCert Certificate Authority, right? I switched from one CA to another just like that, right? Very easy. And so once again, like I said, huge benefits on managing thousands of certificates, not only from a security standpoint, but also from an operational efficiency standpoint. You can also see how easy it is to sunset one PKI for another or to switch from one CA vendor to another. Venafi integrates directly with those, you know, with all of your notifications, which you saw, and in addition to that, we could integrate with any of your ticketing systems. So thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later.